Good day, everyone. Welcome to Learning Diaries. If you haven't subscribed yet to our channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for you to be updated with the latest videos and updates. For today's lesson, we will talk about the active and passive voice of the verb. To start off today's lesson, let's begin with these two sentences. Arya washes her hands every 30 minutes. The wind blew away her hat. Let's answer these questions. Who is doing the action in the sentence? In our first sentence, we have Arya. In our second sentence, we have the word wind. Next, the dog barks loudly at night. She is a very obedient kid. Question. Who or what is being talked about in the sentence? We have the word dog for our first sentence. For our second sentence, we have the word she. The answer to the question, who is doing the action in the sentence, such as Arya and wind, and the answer to the question, who or what is being talked about in the sentence, such as dog and she, are what we call as subject. When we say subject, it refers to the word that is being talked about in the sentence or to the word that is doing the action in the sentence. On the other hand, what do you call the words that are used to show action or state of being? Example, washes, blew, barks, am, is, are. These words are what we call as verbs. Verbs are words that are used to show action or state of being. Also, what do you call the word that receives the action in the sentence? Example, the word ball in this sentence. The player threw the ball. The word ball received the action threw. We call it as object or the receiver of the action. Let us learn. There are actually two special forms of the verb. The first one is the active voice, and the second one is the passive voice. In the active voice, when the subject does the action, the sentence is said to be in the active voice. On the other hand, for the passive voice, when the subject is the receiver of the action and not the doer, the sentence is said to be in the passive voice. As we get to know more about these forms of the verb, let's begin with the active voice of the verb. Active voice of the verb. When we form the active voice of the verb, we use this formula. Subject, or the doer of the action, plus the verb, plus the object, or the receiver of the action. Let's have this as an example. President Duterte ordered coffee at Starbucks. Let's analyze this sentence by answering the following questions. Who is the doer of the action? We have, it is President Duterte. Therefore, since the doer of the action in our sentence is President Duterte is our subject. Next question. What action did President Duterte do? He ordered. Since this is the action done by President Duterte, the word ordered, therefore, is our verb. Let's proceed. What did President Duterte order? He ordered coffee. The word coffee is a receiver of the action ordered. Therefore, the word coffee is our object in the sentence, or the receiver of the action. Let's have another example. The police officers scolded the violators of ECQ. Who is the doer of the action? It is the police officers. What did the police officers do? They scolded. Whom did the police officers scold? The violators. In our sentence, the word police officers is our subject. The word scolded is our verb. And the word violators is our object. In the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action and the object is the receiver of the action. In our table, for our first sentence, President Duterte is our subject, since he is the doer of the action. The word ordered is our verb. And the word coffee is our object, since it receives the action ordered. In our second sentence, our subject is police officers. Our verb is scolded, and the receiver of the action is the violators. After learning about the active voice of the verb, let us now move on to the passive voice of the verb. We form the passive voice of the verb using this formula. Subject plus verb plus doer of the action. In the active voice, our subject is the doer of the action. Meanwhile, in the passive voice, the receiver of the action is now the subject. Let's take this for example. My watch was taken by a stranger. The word watch is our subject. It is not the doer of the action. Rather, it is a receiver of the action. But we are talking about the word watch in our sentence. Therefore, this is our subject. Our verb is was taken. And our doer of the action is stranger. In the passive voice, the subject receives the action. The object of the active verb becomes the subject of the passive verb. The verb becomes a verb phrase. The be verbs is, are, was, were, being, been, plus past participle of the active verb. Let's look at our table. The word coffee is now our subject, and our verb is was ordered. It comes in the form be verb plus past participle of the active verb, which is ordered. We also made use of the preposition by, and the doer of our action is President Duterte. In the second sentence, the subject is the violators, and our verb is were scolded, and the doer of the action plus the preposition by the police officers. Let's compare. For the active voice, President Duterte ordered coffee at Starbucks. For the passive, a coffee at Starbucks was ordered by President Duterte. In our first sentence in the active voice, President Duterte is the doer of the action, therefore is our subject. The word ordered is the verb, and the word coffee is the receiver of the action, which comes after the verb. For the passive voice, our subject is the word coffee, It is not the doer of the action, rather, it is the receiver of the action. Our verb is no longer a plain active verb. Rather, it comes in the form of a verb phrase. Was ordered. And the doer of the action, President Duterte, is now placed after our verb. Let's practice. Identify whether the verb used in the sentence is in the active or passive voice. The book was read by the students. What's your answer? It's in the passive voice. Fruits were given by the nurses. We have here the verb phrase were given. So what do you think is it? Is it in the active voice or is it in the passive voice? It's in the passive voice. I baked a cake for the event. Our verb here is the word baked. It's in the active voice. Danny called the police right away. In this sentence, our subject is the doer of the action, which is Danny. And our verb is the word called. And the receiver of our action is placed after the verb, which is the word police. So the answer is active voice. For our last item, the fire victims were taken by the rescuers. What's your answer? Passive voice. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something today. Do not forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for you to be always updated. See you next time!